Welcome to week 4. Now this week we kind of complete the foundation. What we're doing is we're putting the structure up around this new household that you're going to be building, so that when you systematically work with your inner children, you're going to have a place, a new, fresh, solid place to bring them. So as promised from last week, this week we're talking about the 5 stages of grief, and you're going to be really inundated with information on that. I cannot tell you how important that process is. It's basically, I think, the process that we are engaged in 24/7, actually. If you think about it, every minute of the day we are involved in one of the 5 stages of grief. Now you'll read about this, but just let me give you a preview of it. The 5 stages of grief are anxiety and denial. We have something happen that puts us into shock, and it triggers the loss. It triggers that fear that we're not going to survive if we lose it. So our psyche puts us into this state of shock, and we do kind of what's called psychic numbing. Now, during that psychic numbing, the reality kind of emerges and cracks through, and that's the panic that we feel, the anxiety. So anytime you feel anxiety, there's something in your life that you're experiencing loss around. And it's something that feels life-threatening. So you have a panic attack, you have an anxiety attack. We manage that anxiety by pushing it back and trying to put it back into our unconscious. Well, ultimately, it surfaces again, and it goes into the 2nd stage of addiction, of grief, which is the bargaining phase. Now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified these stages of grief according to people who were actually at the end-of-life process in response to cancer. She also did a lot of work with HIV babies. But she added a tremendous amount to the concept of grief, and she noticed these progressive stages. The thing about grief is it's not always predictable. You will go through these 5 stages, but it's not always sequential. The 2nd stage is the bargaining. That's when we perceive that we're going to lose it, and we kind of try to, regain control. So we try to fix it, we try to change it, or we try to control it. Now, I've combined the 2nd stage of grief with the concept of codependency, and that's where the idea of the codependent bargain, which you got into last week, really came from. Because I think when we're trying to manage our anxiety, that's when we start trying to conceptualize ways that we can prevent the loss from happening. And when we get into the 3 to 6-year-old stage, I'll talk about the codependent bargain much more fully, because it's during that stage of development that we develop the conceptual ability to even think in those terms. So that's the 2nd stage. The 3rd stage is the anger, the rage. And that's when we realize that we can't change it, we can't control it, we can't fix it, we can't keep the anxiety down, and we get irritated. So there's 2 levels of the anger phase. The first is irritation, and we can stay in that forever. The 2nd is the anger. And I speak to the anger on that level as truth unspoken. The higher the volume of our anger, the more we have not spoken our truth. So anger is usually mixed with a sense of betrayal. We were betrayed by others. We were ultimately betrayed by ourselves for not speaking our truth. When we could finally shout out, "This happened," what we do with the inner child by speaking the truth is we sever the hope that things are going to be different. And when we do that, we are in a position to embrace the fact that what we're trying to fight against, what we're trying to hold on to, we've already lost. And so we collapse into the despair. Now, some people go into the despair first, and then the anger takes them out of that into resolution. So again, this is not necessarily sequential, but I want you to be familiar with the 5 stages. Now, the 5th stage is the acceptance and resolution. The videos that I recorded 2 or 3 years ago, which I'm now adding to your package. Takes the first 4 and it uses the EFT tapping to bring you all the way through neutralizing the emotion, the panic, the anxiety, the fear, the betrayal, the bargaining, the anger, and the despair. And you take that into the 5th stage. So, what do you get for this week? Well, I'm going to give you access to those 5 videos. So you'll have the short little introductions and an EFT sequence to get you through those. But I'm also going to do a bundling of baggage of your grief. And that will be an audio that is like about maybe 30 minutes long. And that's going to take you through the 5 stages of grief in a much fuller way. You also get a tapping script that I designed specifically to move through, and it's got some exercises, so there's a little bit more in-depth work that you can do on these 5 stages. Again, as we go through the developmental stages, you're going to be very familiar with this process. There's a couple articles that I throw in as well. So after this week, you've got all of the foundation you need to really show up and begin to work with not only your inner child, but the aspects of your soul that may be represented in the inner child issues. So, again, thank you for your interest, and bless you for your journey.